in conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama Game Changers Leadership Series podcast.
Hi, welcome to Hungama's Game Changers 2025, a celebration of women who aren't just playing the game, they're changing it. I'm Raunaq from Hungama, and today on the Leadership Series, we're talking to someone who builds worlds not just with words or visuals, but with sound. She composes, orchestrates, advocates, and leads, all while making the creative industry a safer, more inclusive space for everyone. Karina Pardus is a composer, orchestra, and founder of Coy Compositions. She's also president of the Female Composers Safety League and music director at Tanner Dance Adults with Disabilities Program. Her music has shaped podcasts like Talking Autism, games like Hide and Seek, and commercials for brands like Ipsy. And her voice is shaping the future of music creation itself. Karina, welcome to Hungama Game Changers.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Okay, so Karina, I'm going to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got here.
All right. Well, I'll try to make it to the point and not so wide because there's a lot definitely in there. But I have been doing music in some way, shape, or form for the majority of my life. I've been playing the piano for over 30 years. I've been teaching we're getting close to 20 years. Not quite there yet, but it's getting close to it. And I play multiple instruments, and I just have always been involved in music in some way. And I love it. I love it so much. I could never not do it. It's just so much a part of who I am and what my spirit just needs to be able to thrive. And it's so fabulous. When I was in my late 20s, I started doing some composing for video games. And I started really small, working with students in game development programs and helping them develop music for their game projects that they were doing for school, which was super enjoyable. I loved being able to learn with them because I definitely was learning. And so being able to work with them was so enjoyable. Then I went to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, for the first time in 2019, and my eyes were just open to the scope of everything that could be a part of that industry. And it was really overwhelming at first, but I am so glad that I did because it introduced me to different ideas of what currently exists in the industry and what I felt was missing in the industry, and finding like-minded people across that entire spectrum. And so that's when I started getting more into orchestration, which I absolutely love doing orchestration. I see, just for listeners who might not know all the vocabulary, which is totally fine, it's definitely jargon. When I compose music, I'm creating the emotional connection that brings the player into the story that is being created by the development team. When I'm orchestrating, I'm creating the sheet music for the live players to be able to read so that they can perform and record what the composer wrote and kind of just bring it to life so that it sounds as good as it possibly can. And it's all just different forms of communication. So I really started getting into orchestrating, and that's what I do a lot now, freelance, which is fabulous. Then I got a little bit into speaking at GameSoundCon, which is in the Burbank, LA area every October, and it's the largest conference, industry staple for just game audio. If you have Game Developers Conference, which is anything in the game development sphere, GameSoundCon is all audio. So composing, orchestrating, sound design, voice acting, the works, implementation, all of it. And having that community there has been really, really marvelous to see it grow. And I spoke there, and then over time met with Brian Schmidt, who's the president of GameSoundCon, and he just is such an example of what leadership in growing communities looks like. And I love working with him. So now I'm the associate director of GameSoundCon, and I help run that entire conference. And then I got just recently got into the Game Audio Network Guild as their production manager for if you have Game Audio Network Guild, acronym GANG, the GANG Awards. And it's the largest award show for game audio, and it happens at GDC every year. And so those are kind of the aspects in the audio sphere that I work in. Absolutely love helping the community come together. And yeah, that's been my professional journey so far.
Okay, so I'm gonna sort of pick at some of the things that you do and sort of figure out, beyond orchestrating and pounding this, you're also president of the Female Composer Safety League. And, I'd love for you to tell us about that, and also where that comes from, where you felt that this was enough of a problem for this particular niche that it merited a safe space for them. I mean, I think it's wonderful. It's just that not a space that, I think somebody in entertainment, and when I say entertainment, we really do cover video and film and music and gaming, at the company, but also sort of as we go out and then interact. And, I'd love for you to tell me where this kind of comes from and what you're able to achieve with it.
Sure. Most definitely. I'd love to talk about that. The Female Composer Safety League, or FCSL, was founded by Nomi Abadi, and she was kind of the visionary of, we need something to help people who have been harmed in this industry. So the Female Composer Safety League is a nonprofit organization that supports women and non-binary people in the music composing field who have been victims of sexual harm or workplace abuse of any kind. And so that can look like so many different things. There's no one right way to be a survivor of these terrible things, but it is extremely, extremely common. And in composing, we're very unique in that most of us are freelancers. There's very few in-house positions, so there's no HR, there's very little protection for us. We don't have a union, we're not a part of SAG-AFTRA or anything like that. And so if there's a problem that's happening, almost always the only person that is available to talk to about it is the person enacting the harm. And this is an extremely dangerous position to be in. If you speak out, retaliation occurs, and it's just so widely common. And this is the need that Nomi and many of us saw. And so she was able to start this organization. She started talking about it in 2019. It was founded as a nonprofit in 2020. And at the time, I was the treasurer of the organization. And I saw, personally, speaking from my own experience, I saw the need to create awareness of the gaps that exist between what people perceive as the glory of the entertainment industry, which There definitely is glory in it, but there's a huge gap between that and how individuals experience what might the cost be to get to that glory. And I myself have experienced some things like that. I am a sexual assault survivor, and it is a really difficult thing to feel alone and not supported in any way and not knowing who to go to for help. And, you know, and there have been times when I have been told explicitly that I was not getting hired for a job because I was a mom. And who did they hire instead? A father. Like, it just doesn't make very much sense. But there's no one that I can go to say, you know, that's a type of prejudice. You're blocking me out because of bias that you have. We all have bias, but we need to find ways to make sure that we are working to build an industry where everyone is welcome, but also that accommodates people's needs. There's a huge difference between saying, I built this, would you like to come in? And I'm building this with you in mind.
Right.
And so the Female Composer Safety League really is a place where we are creating this awareness, where we are building a community to help women feel like they have a safe place that they can go to. We are creating trauma-informed spaces and trainings to be able to help empower studios and individuals to be able to create change, to fill those gaps that exist. And yeah, that's, I guess, a not so brief explanation, but if you have specific questions about it, I'd love for you to kind of
you know, one of the things that I think that ends up happening is that a space that you don't think or you haven't considered, and you know, they hear something like this and they realize, hey, I should be able to talk to somebody. And I'm actually gonna pick at something that you did say. And you know, earlier in the conversation you mentioned freelance is fabulous, and I wrote it down because I was going to say why. And then I also realized that in this part of the conversation that you also talked about the fact that you're freelancers, and so outside of the typical sort of guardrails that would have been a source of protection. So I'd love for you to talk to me about, you know, just the freelance aspect of what it is that you bring, whether it's to gaming or to other projects.
Yeah, so there's pros and cons when it comes to any type of work structure, right? And freelancing is no different. So some of the downsides of freelancing is you never know where your next source of income is going to go. You have to constantly be looking for the next job. The security of it is not always desirable. It can be really scary if there's months between jobs, and sometimes you have to do multiple jobs all at the same time, and it's hard to manage deadlines. You are outside of the guardrails. You often find yourself working very isolated. You work closely with the team that you're working with for a short period of time, but you're not in the studio a lot, and so it can be very lonely feeling. So those are some of the downsides, but there's a lot of power also found in being able to tap into your superpower and your strength and what you want to be able to focus on, and finding people who really love the work that you do so much that they're like, over everyone else, I want to work with you. And yes, being able to have the freedom and flexibility to choose which jobs I do and don't take. Sometimes people feel like they have to say yes to every job, but I really am of the opinion that saying no is an important choice, and to consider that. And freelancing for me also personally, I have 3 kids, I'm married, and I want to be able to structure my work in a way that allows me to enjoy my family how I want to enjoy them. So freelancing helps me be able to do that as well. And yeah, just lots of different projects. You have a very you're able to have a wide variety of experiences with lots of different people, lots of different stories, lots of different projects, lots of different problems that you get to solve. And I love solving problems. That's one of my favorite parts of music. And one of the reasons why I started with podcasts before games is because it's such a fun puzzle of how do I create 30 seconds or less the sound that will help everybody feel connected to this podcast no matter what is being said every single time. And, you know, how do I find that connection in such a short space? So finding all of those little aspects of fun puzzles and working together to achieve that. So those are some of the things that I really love about freelancing. But then this is why finding community outside of a studio is so important to me, because I don't have that. I work from a home studio. I'm not in a workplace with coworkers day in and day out. And so having places like the Female Composer Safety League, where I can talk with other women and make sure that we are feeling supported and able to have the empowerment in strength and numbers to ask for being paid what I'm worth, making sure that I'm setting boundaries when things happen that shouldn't be happening to help protect myself and my work, and you know, making sure that you're getting credited where you should be credited and all those things. So the Female Composer Safety League as a community really helps me with that. And then communities like GameSoundCon and the Game Audio Network Guild are just being able to know that I have people that I can turn to when I have questions, or when I have grief, that I can turn to people, when I'm excited that there's people to celebrate with me. And so community building is such an essential part of any career, but especially for a freelancer.
You know, actually, in industries like music and gaming, where informal networks can sometimes become, you know, gatekeeping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. I think finding your community or your space where you will feel like you kind of belong to this organization, I think perhaps I don't know, you will probably be able to tell us better, but you know, maybe help marginalized creators thrive, not just survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to just believe people's stories and to recognize that everybody's experience is so different. But I cannot understand everything that someone else would experience. I have friends who, you know, have experienced homophobia in the workplace, racism in the workplace, you know, so many different things that I can't understand from that aspect. But or even friends who have experienced ableism in the workplace because of disabilities that they have, that they are either undermined or taken for granted, or both, which doesn't really make sense, but it both can happen at the same time. And it's really unfortunate, especially in a creative field where everyone has so much that they can contribute. And we need to make sure that we are finding avenues to not just highlight what they're doing, but to enable them a path to be able to do it in the best way that they possibly can.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm going to actually sort of ask you a little bit more about gatekeeping, because there is actually nobody that will tell you that it doesn't happen. I think what I hear differently from different people is intent. Although I do believe that intention doesn't matter, it's impact. But sometimes you're being left out because you're outside of the organization, and so you're not. Sometimes it is a little bit of crony capitalism. I know this guy, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the people sitting in that room making suggestions don't know. You're not sitting in their head.
Right.
And that's where I think networking comes in. I think a lot of women, I'm a parent, and I think for a lot of women in the workspace, networking is a really deprioritized aspect, because it just seems like you're taking time away that you could otherwise be doing, finishing work and then going home early. And so I tend to see fewer women take the time out for speaking engagements or just conferences, or just because there's a meetup or a gathering, sort of taking the time out to go. Because if you go 4, 5, 7 times, then you will know those, 40, 50, 70 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Networking is essential, and it's a skill. If someone doesn't feel comfortable doing it, that's okay and extremely normal. It takes practice to know how to network or be engaged at these places, but it is very important. And so something that I have experienced, it's very interesting as a woman networking in the business, because I've been told so many times by, when I was getting started, and even still now, but less so now because I know more people. But at the beginning, when I was like, how can I get to know people? How can I get in there? And almost every single answer was, just email someone and ask them to go out for a cup of coffee so that you can talk to them. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me as easily, because there can be insinuated connotations that don't exist. Yeah. But me asking a man out for a cup of coffee is very different than a man asking a man out for a cup of coffee. And I just never felt comfortable with that. That wasn't something that I felt like I could do safely. And so I had to find more unique ways to start getting out there. Local meetups are a great way to get involved. Here in Utah, we have the Utah Game Audio chapter run by Rachel Robinson, who is fabulous. And just getting together in little spaces like that can make it feel easier. I have in many times been the only woman in the room in a large industry gathering, and it can be really intimidating and awkward, because that people notice you, and that they're noticing you not for why you want to be noticed. And that can be really, really hard. I had to do a lot of practicing of how I wanted to talk to people so that I could redirect them to my skills and what I want to do and why I love what I do and my passion, what I wanted them to focus on. And sometimes that meant that in the car on my drive there, I would practice saying out loud how much I charge for something, so that when I would talk to people, it wouldn't come out with a big question mark. I charge this much per minute. It's because it can be really, really uncomfortable, but you want to be able to speak in a way that gives them confidence that you do belong there. And it's unfair that you have to prove that to them. And yet that's currently the space that we are in. And so let me just be the first one to tell you, whoever's listening to this, you do deserve to be there. They will learn it, because there's nothing to disprove that. You being there says that you belong there and that you deserve to be there along with the rest of them. So learn to believe that. Again, practice. Say it to yourself as many times as you need to, and then go in with the confidence that you are a creative person who has something to contribute that nobody else does, even if you don't know what that unique factor is. You have something that nobody else has to contribute, and so you need to be there. And so networking and conferences, going to meetups, going to parties, be safe at parties, buddy systems, short periods of time, whatever you need to feel safe. Don't go into a position that feels unsafe to you just because there might be a gig there. Don't ever do that, please. There are better gigs that will treat you with respect. So that is my experience.
I think
but
actually what you're saying is so true. I'll add a little tip that I think GDC as a conference goes can be a little isolating and intimidating because you typically go one person from an organization. And one of the things that I realized is over the years, if you, and you're right, it's very, very layered when as a woman, you send a message to a man saying, can we get a cup of coffee? I find that if you look, you will today, which is a nice change from when I first started going to GDC. But today you will find so many women in this space that you'd like to explore. And I find at least 7 or 8 out of 10 will respond to you and try and find those 10 minutes and have a cup of coffee with you. Even, they'll say, all right, I'm going to go to Chipotle for lunch, so you can just come over there when I'm on my, 20-minute lunch break. But I do find that, reaching out to women in your network or in that you have access to on LinkedIn is also a great way to start, because it allows you to have that one thing that you're going to do in the course of the day. You've got this person that you're going to meet, so it kind of structures your day, and then you can attend some of the panels. I've made some good friends at GDC just talking to the person sitting to my right. And, I remember one time, it was early on, and she was there by herself. And then we ended up doing the entire conference together, and we would kind of hive off for meetings and then kind of come back and connect and say, okay, where are you at? Which session? Okay, no, I'm going for this one. I'll see you after. And it just kind of gave me someone to kind of connect back with and hang out with, because it's 5 days. But yes, I do believe that, reaching out. And I also think pre-planning. If you plan a little bit in advance and you request people for time, they will give it to you, and it'll allow you to then, they will connect you with 5 other people or the people standing next to them. And, it kind of builds from there, and it's slow, but it's a process.
Yeah, it for sure is a process. And I will say, I did not get any jobs my first 2 years at GDC because people still didn't really know me yet. They have to be able to feel like they can rely on you being there again and again and again before they really know, oh, this is someone that I feel like I can connect with in a professional job type setting. And with that, every single job that I have gotten in orchestration, and how I got into being associate director for GameSoundCon, being production manager for Gang, all of that happened because I kept showing up.
Yeah.
Even though there were people, bringing it back to gatekeeping, there were people who made me feel like I shouldn't be there, who made me feel like I didn't have the skills and I couldn't learn them. And you don't even know what, X jargon or this program is. Like, what are you even doing here? And there will be people like that, and they are not the ones who know what you're capable of, because you know what you're capable of. And if you just keep showing up and finding the people who are willing to listen, who are interested in your success, who want to help you learn just because they want to make the industry better, those people exist in massive numbers. You just have to go out there and find them. I, same thing, have made wonderful friends, both at GDC and at GameSoundCon, who now whenever like there's a friend that I made that anytime I struggle learning new software, and that is a big part of the job, and it's just really hard and slow and labored for me. And so when I get really frustrated, I'll contact him and be like, hey, I hate this software right now. And he's like, let's hop on a Zoom call real fast. And he'll hop on and he'll just show me a couple things. And he's like, are you feeling better? I was like, yes, I'm feeling better. Thank you. And he's like, great, call me next time. And he's just there when I need him. Like, those kinds of people are waiting for you to enrich their lives in the industry.
Excuse me.
So there are gatekeepers, but there are also people who are door openers. So we need to, if it's not working, find a way to pivot. Like, I was not finding work as a composer. Sad, but not the worst thing ever, because I just found a way to pivot to something that was working. And it took me a little bit, but I learned that to pivot does not mean that it's a failure. It's just a new path to unknown yet inevitable success.
Oh, that's beautiful. I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I think the ability to pivot shows agility. And in a time where I think more jobs are going to change, we don't even know what we need to know. The only thing that you can learn is how to learn. So I think, we're on that path there. For the music or the audio and the composers out there, how does audio and gaming work? What skills should they, beyond their basic musical skills, what are the things that they should be looking at in terms of software, or in terms of just how to plan for it? Because whether it's on SoundCloud or on some of the games and some of the sort of little videos and bits that I was able to see, I found that a lot of your music carries a lot of texture and empathy, but also power. And I realized that these micro emotions are important for gaming. So how did you realize that you had the skills to do this storytelling kind of music and kind of, make it about more than aesthetics, but about meaning?
Ooh, that's a great question. First of all, thank you. Yeah, I think there's an amazing quote that I love from Amanda Palmer, and she says, you can only connect the dots that you collect. So the more experiences that you let yourself feel, the more stories that you let yourself engage with, the more dots you have. And there are, when it comes to, there's a couple different sections of this question, I feel. The first is the technical skills, and then the second is the emotional storytelling skills. And then the third is how do you bring them all together and integrate them? So technical skills wise, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do, but some really basic things like find a DAW or a digital audio workstation that works for you. People will tell them what the best DAW is. There will be, quote, industry standards, but honestly, the best DAW is the one that you know how to use well. If you can use it to do what you need to do, then that's the right one. And there might be some employers who really want you to know their software, and that's fine. That can be a choice that you make if you're going to do that or not, or pursue other ways to do things. But the best DAW is the one that you know how to use to do what you need to do. So don't feel overwhelmed by that. As a reference, I use Reaper, which is not the biggest, not the most used, but it is extremely versatile. And it's the first one that I learned because it was a really low buy-in.
Right.
I was extremely poor and I couldn't afford the super hundreds of dollars ones. And so that's the one that I went with. And that's the one that I still use today because it's the one that I know. So
Right.
whatever software you're using, that's what I would say. Same thing with if you're doing notation software. I love Dorico. The way that it runs, the user interface has completely changed my workflow for the better, but a lot of people still really love Sibelius, and that's great. So find the software that works. Another technical skill that I think is really important is, like you said, learning how to learn. The next big sound and the next sound library isn't going to make you better than the skills that you have. So you need to learn how the instruments work together. If you're wanting to know more about how the textures of the instruments work together, my favorite reference that I go back to all the time is the Peter and the Wolf story. You can find it on YouTube, where it goes through the Peter and the Wolf story with instruments, and each instrument has a different voice and a different part to play in the story, and it really helps you learn how they all work together. And it's beautiful. There's plenty of books out there. Find the ones that work. Don't go after all of the books at the expense of you being able to do things.
Right.
Right. You still need to be putting in the work to do the technical things, not just the learning things. And that's really hard for me because I just love reading and I love the learning part. But there needs to be, some type of dedication to the assimilation of what it is that you're learning and the doing of it. So, and yeah, if you're find someone whose work you really admire and listen to their work and really try to analyze it, see if there's something that you can do. A lot of people will do mock-ups which is where you find a song and you put it into your DAW and then you try to make it sound the way that it sounds in its professional capacity, right? And processes take time. Find people to ask for help, because that is, again, the community is there for you as much as you are there for it. So use that. It's important. So that's kind of the technical skills. For the emotional skills part, something that I started doing early on when someone would, ask me for temp music, or if I was doing a job or whatever it was, when I would do my consultation part with them to hear what the brief was, I found a question that just became standard in my first interaction with them, which is, what are 2 to 3 specific emotions that you want the audience to feel when they hear this? When they push start on your game, what emotion do you want them to have? Because that's what music does. Music brings emotions to us faster than any other artistic medium. And we want those to be specific. Happy is not a specific emotion, because you can be happy that today was Sunday. You can be happy that your child came home. You can be happy that you got all your work done. You can be, happy that you got ice cream. There's so many, those are so non-specific. We want things that are more specific. I want them to feel like they belong here. Belonging is a more specific emotion. I want them to feel like there is sorrow for something, that there's loss. So different things like that. And an amazing book that helped me really learn how to talk about emotions in a very specific way, that then I applied to my music is called Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, where she literally goes through emotions and defines them and talks about what that looks like in our life. And that's great for anyone, whether you do music or not. The more we know about our emotions, the better we can relate to each other and that we can strengthen those relationships. But learning about the emotions that we feel and how we feel them and what they look like, how they manifest themselves, helped me be able to recognize that that's what music does, and to find the elements that really tap into that. What does a brass choir feel like? What does it feel like when you have a solo bassoon? You know, when you have a lot of driving percussion, and it's not just one thing. There's so many elements, but the aspect of color in an orchestra has such a profound effect on how we experience that kind of environment. So yeah, so the more you learn about yourself and how you feel things, again, collecting those dots, the easier it will be to feel the pull. It's like a magnetic pull towards what works and what doesn't work. And feedback, getting feedback from your community. Feedback is a gift. Seek it as often as you can, but don't let it deter you from your expertise as an artist, that you know what it is that you're looking for. And they can have greater expertise with, you know, they've been in the industry for 20 plus years. They still don't know what it is that you're trying to do, but they can help you get there if you can explain that to them. And it can be a collaborative experience. Collaboration is way more fun for me than solo work, because my brain isn't the best one out there, but it has a lot of really good stuff. And when it works with other great brains, it's just a good time. So then you have the assimilation, being able to put it all together. Don't be afraid to make bad art. It's so important. It's so important to make bad art, because you can't know what's good if you just keep striving for perfect over and over and over and over again. Done is better than perfect in a lot of cases, because perfect can't grow. And as an artist, you want to keep growing. So do things even if they sound bad. If it sounds bad, don't delete it. I have an entire folder on my computer that is entitled Unfinished Mistakes. That's what it's called on my computer, because it was a mistake, it didn't work, but it's not finished. I can come back to it and maybe it'll be used later, even if it's just for a lesson. There have been times that I've been like, wait, that idea, that was awful. I think I could repurpose it to be something better for this job now. And so, you know, that is an important part of it. Just keep trying even when it's bad or quote wrong. Finding ways to fail outside of your art, I think, is also important to the process. You know, it can be like, I love baking bread because it's really hard and it doesn't always work out. And it's low risk if I mess up a loaf of bread. And there's been very few times that it's been inedible. It has happened. Sometimes it's inedible. Sometimes it's just like, this is really dense and not the best, but we're still going to eat it because I made it and it's fine. You know, and then other times it's like, oh my gosh, this was gloriously fluffy. It's exactly what I wanted. But that experience of, I tried and I failed and it was okay, I survived it, is, I think, an important thing to practice, because you are going to fail in your art sometimes and it feels a lot heavier, it's a lot higher risk, but you're going to survive it and you're going to be able to make the next thing and it will be okay. Doing things bad on purpose. I love doing ugly doodles where I will try and I'll just scribble on a page, closing my eyes, and then I'll look at it and try to make it look different, but not pretty. I don't want it to look perfect. I want to be able to experience art that exists there without judgment or shame. Because it's really easy to judge and shame myself when I'm doing music. And practicing to take myself out of that space, I think, is a really important way to assimilate all of that together. So yeah, a lot of failure, but then there also has to be celebration and joy and gratitude. I have another folder on my computer called Joy, and it's where I keep screenshots and emails of clients who are like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I wanted. I loved it. Or I have a video of, there's a client of mine who, she's a singer-songwriter, and she would send me voice files, and she needed me to put it on sheet music so that she could send it to the copyright office and, protect her work. And the first time that I sent her the first batch of files, the video I got back was of her teary-eyed because she had never seen her music written down on paper before. Like that joy, like this is why I do this. Sometimes I put things in there that I love just for me. Like I'm proud of myself for doing this thing. Things of that nature. So recognizing the progress, sometimes replacing your to-do list with a got done list.
Right.
I'm just gonna, I do a cleanse of to-do lists sometimes where I'm like, I'm not writing anything I need to do. I'm only writing down the things that I get done so that I can be like, yay, go me, I did it.
Like, I think that's a great coping mechanism when things are feeling like they're gonna spiral out of control at home, at work, on an assignment.
Yeah, and took a shower, good, on the list. Fed my kid, on the list. Took a walk for 5 minutes outside, on the list, because nature is an important part of my rejuvenation rituals. The job is 5 pages. I got 2 stanzas down, put it on the list. I didn't finish the job, but I got something done, and that is important, right? And then gratitude. I think gratitude is a huge part of it, especially when it comes to networking and our communities, making sure that when someone, references you for a job, write them a note and mail it to them. If you don't have, I will look up the studio that they work for, if they work for a studio, and I'll send it to the studio. If I don't have their physical address, then I will write a note. I have written notes, taken a picture, and emailed it to them. Like, if you feel comfortable asking them for their address, do that, finding ways to give back to your community, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of experience. There's always something that you can give to make your community stronger. And I think that when I have found ways to do that, it has made my artistic character stronger and more resilient, and that makes me better at what I do. So those are like some, I'm sure there's way more, I don't know, but those are the things that came to mind in this moment about that.
Okay. Now, just from the conversation that you were saying, at Coy Compositions, you create music for podcasts, for games, for brands. How do you sort of work across formats, and how does your creative approach shift, say, between composing for one or the other?
Working across platforms and like different types of media,
Right.
It's really just what is their expectation. Like my skills don't change a ton between different types of media. I still have to, come up with the melody and the sketch and the instruments and the rhythm and the emotions and how it's going to all work out, and the mix and the whatever it is. All of those elements are still there, but it's about the expectation that the client has and what their audience is. The more I understand their target audience, the better I will be able to facilitate the, you know, the need that they are trying to fill using my skills. For a brand like for Ipsy, when I did commercials for them, it was really cut and dry. We want to reach this target audience. We need it to sound like this, and it cannot sound like these things, which sometimes that is very valuable information. And, you know, they had a very neat and tidy box of this is what we want, and it needs to fit in this generic idea. Great, I can fit it inside that box. That's not a problem. Here, you know, here's 3 choices. Which one do you feel works the best for that box? Pick. Great, let's develop that. Done. For games, for podcasts, it's kind of a mixture between the two because it's creative, but it still has a very strict guideline. Again, I love the problem solving aspect of such small time to create that connection musically between the audience and what they're about to experience. And so that's super fun. With games, again, it depends on the client, but sometimes I have extreme creative freedom and sometimes I have very little. And yet it's all collaborative.
Yeah.
With a game or a film, you're not just working for one person. You're working with the art team, you're working with the narrative team, you're working with the coding people who are engineering the movement and the experience that the player is going to be doing. How does the player engage with the game? How is the music going to be applied in those moments? And so it really is just the scope of how much music, including the silence that is essential in music. You don't want constant sound, but how does this aural experience fill the space of what they are trying to accomplish? And yeah, a lot of yeses, a lot of no's, a lot of maybes, a lot of let's see where this takes us, never mind, go back quick, retcon it, that's not what I meant, you know, all these different things.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Out of all of these, what do you think has been your most joyful project?
Oh,
or something you're proud of? I mean, you know, just out of
sure.
Done.
I'm really proud of myself when I got started. It was really hard to get started. My schooling is in performance. I was a professional concert pianist before, and you know, I sang professionally in choirs. I did so many performance-based things, which I absolutely love, and I miss it, and I try to do it every now and then. I sprinkle it in because that is joyful for me. But I didn't have educational support for composing, for all of the software, for what this industry even was. I didn't have any of that. And so the me who started and kept going,
yeah,
I'm really proud of that. It would have been really easy to stop. That would have been the easiest thing to do. And then I'm really proud of the ways that I've been able to engage with the communities around me. One of my greatest joys is being able to help empower others to recognize what they are capable of, and So being able to be the production manager for the Gang Awards, where all we do is celebrate the amazing artistry in the industry, is so cool that I got to, this was my first year doing that. I loved it. It was so fun. Being able to enable the game audio community to come together and work together and make the industry better, both from an artistic and creative standpoint, as well as from an interpersonal and safety aspect. Just all the ways that people, the industry is made up of people, and people have the power to change and build an industry that they want. And so being able to engage in that is probably my favorite. I love being able to do that and see the capacity for just how passion and purpose can work together. And when I do music, it's like just the cherry on top. It's like it's the sparkle to the day, that I get to help bring these storytellers together, as not the glue, but as an element to how it all fits together. So that's just what I really love about what I do.
Oh my God, I think that's special and incredible. And I love that it has as much to do with the music as it does about the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, tell me, Karina, I think as women in these spaces, in gaming, you are definitely, I think, still quite often, I know that I feel it. Sometimes you are the woman in the room as opposed to another person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's you're introduced as this, and she's XYZ, and a mother, and I find that sometimes it irritates me because you're not saying he's also a dad. But I also feel that the reality is that it is a bit of a tightrope walk, balancing ambition and artistry, also kind of balancing what the industry thinks of as success.
Mm-hmm. For sure. In the music aspect of the industry, and I don't know if this is similar in other parts of entertainment, I'm sure there's overlap in some way, but I've experienced it where it's like, if you are not currently on a job, then you don't talk about that. You have to talk about it as though you're on a job, because if you're not working, that must mean that you're not good at what you do, and why would anybody hire you? And it's like, no. The nature of the job is that you're not always on a job. That's just part of freelancing. And I think the gaps are a really important thing to name. And success can look so different for so many people. It's really important to not identify yourself by your job. It's if part of your identity is what jobs you're doing or how many jobs you have, then you are going to constantly be in fight flight mode, because you're going to feel constant attacks everywhere that you're not doing enough. And so finding instead your purpose in who you are and in who you're becoming. And I think that that's really important with, being a mom. It's really hard sometimes. And, as I said before, some people have used that against me, and I used to view it very negative, that I'm a mom composer. And it's like, no, I don't have to identify it in a negative way. I love being a mom, and I love being, an audio professional, and they both can coexist in unique ways. And there are communities out there for mothers in music. There's a an organization called Mamas in Music. And that's a great community to find, again, commiseration and celebration wherever you need it in that aspect. But when it comes to the balance of it, there's a quote that I'm not going to remember who to credit with it, and I apologize, but it is like an ongoing mantra for myself. And it is, when you're juggling 100 balls, it's essential to know which ones are plastic and which ones are glass.
Yeah.
And sometimes a shower is plastic and sometimes it's glass. Sometimes you have to take that shower or else nothing will go right. You'll feel terrible and you're not going to be in your creative element, and you're going to be grumpy and it's just not going to work. Sometimes getting a certain amount of work done in the day can be plastic. It'll bounce because other things became more important in that moment. Yeah. And it goes like that for everything. And so daily being able to take account of my priorities and why I am prioritizing them. Am I prioritizing them because someone else told me that that's what I should be doing and that that's what success should look like? Or am I prioritizing that because that's going to get me where I actually want to be by the end of the day? And then when I don't get everything done by the end of the day, grace, so much grace. That it's okay. Sometimes my 100% is at 110%, and sometimes my 100% is at 20%. But I gave all the 20% that I had to give for that day. Yeah. And that is part of being human. And we are allowed to be human. I have to remind myself all the time to allow myself to be human and not superhuman. It's just not sustainable to be like that all the time. And so yeah, I think that balance is what we choose to make it, and it's constantly changing. It's not a fixed state. You as a person are not a fixed state. Our emotions are not a fixed state. There's so many things that are constantly in flux. And so allowing yourself the flexibility to be able to do that is really, really important. It's like trees are not, trees are very strong. We view them as very, very strong, but they are flexible enough that when wind comes, they don't just topple over.
No, they bend and yield.
Yeah, their roots grow deeper. Their trunks grow thicker. There are my favorite tree is the aspen, because it is impossible for it to stand alone. Aspens are in groves for a reason, because their roots go down and intertwine, and they give the other trees around them the strength to stand in the storms. They can't do it on their own. I can't do everything that I do on my own. I have my roots, and I look for the people who are there to support me. My husband is amazing, and I'm so grateful for him and all of his support, and I try to do what I can to support him also. And there's parents, and there's friends, and there's the community in the industry, and wherever you can find the support to know that you are doing everything you can now, and that's enough. And to not be swayed by the shoulds. Stop shoulding yourself with what you think you should do, and instead find the next needed thing, the next good thing that you are capable of in this moment. And sometimes that's a one baby step at a time, and baby steps are actually really huge. If you've ever seen a baby learn how to walk, it's a big deal, and they fall down a lot.
And it goes fast after you take the first 3 steps.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they fall down, and they don't hate themselves for falling. They get back up and they try again. And it's really an incredible miracle that we all have the opportunity to do that.
Karina, I think more than anything else, thank you so much for sharing the newer models of what success looks like in the context of, I think, human realities, not just realities for women, although that is, a big part of, I think, our journey, and hopefully it will be just, a human perspective by the time our children are taking on these challenges. Karina, and I'm also conscious of the time, and I know it's late for you, so I want to thank you so much for giving me your time. And before you go, I'd like to invite you to nominate 2 women that you think we should add to our Game Changers list for next year. Every person that we speak to nominates 2 women for the subsequent year. You can give me the names now, or you can email them to me later. Basically just women who are shaping the future of entertainment, storytelling, sound. It could be in gaming, in music, or in a film. I wanted to have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, there's so many. I'll have to give you more than 2 because there's so many women who are doing such amazing things. And I love being in community with them. So I'll email you. There's so many.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of thank you for the music, the leadership, and the courage to redesign the system and create structure while thriving inside of it.
Thank you.
And this is Raunaq. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karina.
In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music, and gaming. Only on Hungama Game Changers Leadership Series podcast.